Welcome, Sangaitla. It's so good to see everybody here. As people start joining our live stream, and we're all just big faces showing up on people's Facebook feed. Can't wait to share our team with everybody here and give us a chance to reconnect. It seems like it's been so long since we got together as a community, and certainly far too long since we got to travel out to your communities, to our villages across the state, and to do work side by side with our communities on the land. Absolutely miss it, and absolutely miss visiting with folks around their tables and around their schools and meeting in gyms and all those things that we used to do back when people could gather together and be in person. So we here at First Alaskans Institute wanted to spend some time with all of you on this National Day of Racial Healing to celebrate who we are as Native people, to make sure that you know who these amazing folks are that I get to work with every day at First Alaskans Institute, and make sure that you see our faces so we can at least connect this way, and that we have a chance to share who we are, who our ancestors are with all of you, so that you know who we belong to and who we come from, and talk a little bit about what this National Day of Racial Healing is about, and about how we, because we're all from different Native nations here in Alaska, how we look at what racial healing means and what healing means for us. So we're going to take some time to introduce ourselves to all of you good folks, and then just sit and have some coffee or tea, have some nooks or snacks together as we talk about what healing is for each of us. So with that, I want to ask Uyurukchak if she will join me and say hello and do a land acknowledgement for us, land recognition for us.
Yeah, Brianna, as we always like to start off in a good way, we want to start off with the land acknowledgement and recognize that for 10,000 years plus, Alaska has been and always will be a Native place. We want to acknowledge the first peoples who have always stewarded the lands that we reside on. And our First Alaskans Institute office is on the unceded traditional lands of the Dene'ina people, whose traditional name for this place is Degayakak. The Dene'ina people allow us to do our work here, and we want to lift them up and acknowledge their continued care for these lands. And we also want to acknowledge that we are in an unceded virtual space, which allows us to be anywhere in the world, which is amazing, and connect with all of the Indigenous people everywhere. So put in the comments where you're calling in from so we can see and acknowledge the lands that you're calling in from or you're watching us from. Guyana Doi Lagunai.
Guyana, Chish. Okay, so I'll kick us off and make sure I introduce myself, my relatives, my ancestors, where I'm from, and then our team's just gonna take their turn doing the same. And one of the reasons that we wanted to spend this time with everyone through Facebook Live was because we miss you. And so much has gone on in the world, and so much has gone on in our lives. And our community is what matters the most to us, and our people, and how you're doing, and all those traditions and cultural stories and cultural practices, and all the learning and healing journeys we're on with our languages, and how your kids are doing, and what's going on in your schools and in your tribal councils and at your organizations. And we just miss you. And we wanted to make sure that you had a chance to get to know us a little bit better. And in recognition of this day, this National Day of Racial Healing, just be good relatives to each other. So making time and space to just check in is important in the new year. And Lord knows we've all been through the ringer. It feels like people are exhausted. People are exhausted of Zoom meetings. People are exhausted from dealing with everything that this pandemic has brought to us. So we hope that this time you spend with us today will be just like sitting around, drinking some coffee and listening to some good stories. Nun kwaigai gitkianans hinudi non kiagan. Nun kwaigai gitkianans is my grandmother, Mona Jackson. She was from Haida Gwaii, Hiktahanmai, and made her home here in our community of Kihkwan. She was a teacher. She helped other mothers give birth. She had so many children. Kanahake Hinudi Chan Kiagan. Kanahake was my grandfather, Tommy Jackson Sr. Hathlungadas, he was Tlinget, and he came from here, Kihkwan, in the heart of Tlinget Ani. He was Tsagwedi, so I get to have the honor of being the grandchild of the Tsagwedi people, the Kilauea people. Stathkawas di Aukiang. Stathkawas is my mother, Delachini. She's a weaver and a teacher. And she makes her home here in Kihkwan, also up in Juneau, up in Akwan territory. Bilchini Hinudi Khad Kiagan. Bilchini was my father. And he made his home here in my community of Cake. I just lost him recently, so learning how to say Kiagan for my father is a journey, and I'm getting there. But he used to work for Fish and Game as a biologist. He was a magistrate in our village for years. He brought life back into the hatchery. He was a land planner. He was an amazing father. Lagunai Hinodikhad Kildikiang. Lagunai is my Haida name. And it means a woman who loves to throw big parties. It's a name that my Nani's sister, my Nani, my Nani gave that name to me. And when she told me what it meant, she said, it kind of means a woman with a busy life. And so I was like, okay. A little bit of grandma censorship there, because then I learned what it really meant. And Katsakas Gusti di Kwalag, and I'm eagle. Cheech Gitne Hinu Uda Ijong, and I'm a Cheech Gitne woman. Our crest is the hummingbird. I'm also Thinget. Yech Nachatsati. I come from the Raven clan. Kachadi Ayachat. I'm Kachadi, freshwater mark sockeye salmon. And our village here, Kich Kwan, the mouth of the dawn, the opening of the dawn people. We're also known as the village that never sleeps. because we were known for our really good parties, weeks at a time in the winter time. And I'm really honored to be a woman of this place, and getting to work with these people. So I get to work as the president, CEO of the organization. Gosh, I don't think I ever actually really say that. But part of us introducing ourselves in this way is so people will know what our roles are, and will hopefully be able to reach us easier and know what our roles is, what we do, and be able to connect with us, because we really do miss our community and love being in contact with all of you. So that's my Hudkill introduction and a little bit of my Tlingit introduction. I'm on my language learning journey, so I will continue to try to strengthen my language. So I'm on the journey of learning both my Hudkill language and my Tlingit language. Hudkill and Tlingit Yuchatangi. So that's me. And I'll kick it over to Ayu's next.
Good afternoon. You know, Pachini was an extraordinary man who raised extraordinary women. So I'm very thankful that you brought him into our space, Lagunai, and that you were raised by such a precious human. Ayurunga, unga laklakmirunga, apaka dalaluk lupanyok kasatak, Liurak Doug, Lucidatkun, Kudkok, Herdman, Kiduraka, Kuduruk, Ludalaluk, Vanika Kanigluk, Nukakliga, Inualurak. I'm Ayu Kasatak. I was raised by the Umakleet River. Ungalaklik, where the east wind blows, is where my family is from, and that will always be home. I'm the granddaughter of Stanton and Irene Ketchtag. I'm the daughter of Doug and Vernita Herdman, and I get to be the mother of 4 incredible humans, We currently live and work and learn and grow on the lands of the Denaina here in Dagayakak, also known as Anchorage. And I currently serve as the vice president for First Alaskans Institute. I've had the honor of getting to work with FAI for over a decade at this point, and I feel like I have grown up with the organization, and it really has been an incredible honor. And the topic that we're going to be speaking of today, racial healing, is one that has really marked the entirety of my time with FAI. And it's something that is incredibly dear to me, and I'm really excited for the conversation that we're going to have together. And I look around at the screen with our amazing FAI family, and I really do feel like we could do anything in the whole wide world. So I'm super excited that we're making the space to be able to share each other with all of you and feel all that goodness from our community in. So I will invite my sister Kasaitla to introduce herself.
Amanda Bremner of Sayixatitsa Shinget Ayachat Tekoidi Aya Yauktatach Ka Gunachu Ani Yefatiati. Welcome everyone. My name is Amanda Bremner Kasaitla. My name means mother of names. I am Tlingit, originally from Yakutat, Yakutat in the southeast. My clan is Tequedi, Eagle Brown Bear, and I grew up in Yakutat on the Seatuck and Alsac rivers in Dry Bay. My ancestral land is, and currently I live and work and play and learn and all the things here in Dene'ina Ani, Takayakak, here in Anchorage. And I am mother to a 3-year-old, Tanu. His name means sea lion tooth, strong, and he is. He's a dense little 3-year-old, big 3-year-old. And he's here with me. We're zooming in from our home here in Anchorage, so you might see him pop in and out throughout the next 2 hours. I currently serve as the Indigenous Advancement Director here at FAI, and I'm so very, very thankful to be part of this family that continues working toward racial healing, both independently and collectively for all of our state. And it's amazing, amazing work that I've been prioritizing for myself and my family, working towards breaking cycles and healing that intergenerational trauma that we all have experience with, whether we know it or not, and just awakening that part of ourselves. So I'm very much looking forward to being in this space with all of you and continue learning and hopefully learn some new techniques and ways that I can continue looking at my own healing journey for my family and my communities. Nishtish. Washagidak, eat kuha.
Hawa. Dalang hada lais atlant es ashti gudanai lagam. Good people, it's such an honor to be with you. Frances Demert di Nan Uijan. Frances Demert was my grandmother. Sandra Demert di Au Ijang. Sandra Demert is my mother. Ken Johnson di Had Uijang. Ken Johnson is my father. Wafal Gidak Hinudi Kiang. Barbara Blake Atitai Hinudi Kiang. My name is Wafal Gidak. My English name is Barbara Blake. Gaya Las Gustu di Kualangang. I am of the Raven Moiety. Diak Jan Gagang. I am a woman of the Middletown people. Hikta Hunglai Ush Ijang. My people come from Heidelberg. I am Hudkill or Hudkill. I am Hadas from Hikta Hunglai. I am Yak Janas or Raven from the Shark House. Are my grandmother's people, my mother's people. I am a granddaughter of Leonie D from Cloak or Sloak, and granddaughter of the Nelchina, the Sky Clan. My father's people are Athabaskan from Chestachina. Calling in today from Zantakahini, otherwise known as Juneau in Aquan and Takuquan territory. Mother of one adorable little boy, I guess big boy now, who's very drastically taller than me, even though he's only 15. It's kind of hurtful when that happens, like, but I guess it's best that he's not shorter than me, as I'm only 5'2". And I was reminded of that this weekend when Avery showed up and showed me that she is taller than me, in fact. His name is Yashgiti or Nathaniel Blake. I'm also an auntie to Cedar Demert, who lived with us for many, many years and always will be looked as my daughter, Cutie Pie. So I serve as the director of the Alaska Native Policy Center with First Alaskans, and I've been with the organization for a little over 2 years now. That's it. It's an honor to be with everybody, and I'm excited to listen to all the brilliance in this space. Gunishish Hawa Chinan, and I'll pass it over to Gitgaram Hana'a.
Direction. Amagodi Suogyaks. Good afternoon. Gitgaram Hana'a Duwayu Simsianu, Ganharadi Padegu, Ulukshtamadikdu Watgu, Nigyot Stil Zogu. I am Carla Booth, or Strong Woman in Somalia. I am of the Raven clan, and my family comes from Metlakatla. I am zooming in from Dena'ina lands in Dagaikak. And my mother is Clarissa Booth of Metlakatla, currently lives in Seattle. She's turned into a city girl. And my father was Glenn Somerville from Wisconsin. My grandparents on my mother's side were Violet and Billy Booth of Metlakatla. I have the honor of being the mama to two wonderful young men, Jeffrey Mark, who's 8, and Aiden Hawk, who's 13. Holy smokes. And together, me and my honey, Jake Hawk, try to raise them in a good way, do the best we can. I am the director for our Indigenous Leadership Continuum at First Alaskans, and just very grateful for this time together. Misha can go next.
Baglagipsi unukshalutak uvanga atiga Misha kajag miguranga anaga upseta tataga gunungaluk anaraga kanak tataraga nupun anaraga leading way tataraga Adolf Capelli. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. My Inupiaq name is Mishak. My first name is Marita, and I'm from Gutyak, which means a place where 3 rivers meet. It's also known as Kayana, and it's in the northwestern part of Alaska. My parents are Fred and Esther Capelli, and my maternal grandparents are Henry and Lucy Jackson, and my paternal grandparents are Lidumwe and Adolf Capelli. And if any of my Marshallese family is listening in, Yakwe, Elai Mirita, Ijen, Alaska, Nejin Brady, Ngari, Majo, Imbrili. We have a bunch of people that have shared where they're zooming in from. I'm currently zooming in from Dagaikak, which is Dena'ina land, also known as Anchorage. But some of the folks that have shared where they're zooming in from include Sutton, Alaska, Nuipsut, Kikwan Cake. Is that how you say that? For all my, oh yeah, okay. Kotlik, Kanaka Maoli, welcome from across the world, Mexico, Tanana, and Anchorage. I'm very grateful to be part of this conversation. And I serve First Alaskans Institute as the Gedumze Inzo, which it's Somalia for person that makes camp. It's part of the Indigenous Leadership Continuum Initiative.
Uvlu Lautak. Good afternoon, everyone. Atira Kunmeru, Nalwaga Mutun, Casey Hopson, Inupea Rurunga, Angayukaka Kutuklu, Saftar Hussein Lu, Asi Atataka, Ben Hopson Senior Lu, Kerenira Lurulu, Hassan Jani Lu, Palivan Khan Lu. Good afternoon, everyone. I briefly introduced myself in Inupiaq. I go by Kunmeru. I am also known as Casey Hopson. My other Inupiaq name that people also know me by is Puruk. So you can call me Kunmeru or Puruk or Casey, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I am zooming in from Dena'ina homelands here in Dagaikak as well. I am Inupiaq from the North Slope, from the communities of Ologonuk and Dutkeravik. And my grandparents are, on my mother's side, are Jeanette Hopson, and also known as Kereniraluk and Ben Hopson Sr. And on my father's side, my people come from Kashmir, Pakistan, and my grandparents are Hassan, Jani, and Palivan Khan. My parents are Kutuk, Muriel Hopson, and Saftar Hussein. And at First Alaskans, I serve in our Alaska Native Policy Center as our Indigenous and governmental affairs strategist. But basically, I just do whatever we need to do to make sure our people are happy, healthy, and strong. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm so glad to see you all, be with you all today. And thanks for joining us and spending some time with us.
Mai Hui Tutman, Candace Branson, Shunami Suslanga at Dachlua, Jumi Labit Kik Dachmiwat, Mama ka Martha Branson, Dadaka Steve Branson, Maka Edna Ferris, Apaka Phil Ferris Sr., Masinaka Martha Jane Shravloff, Dohomwinga Nick Shravloff. I was born and live in Kodiak, and that's where my ancestors are from. My great grandparents are from villages on Kodiak Island, and lived in Kodiak on Tagura Road to raise their family. I am married to David Tucker. I don't want to forget him. He's my family now. And I am new to FAI, so excited to be part of this amazing team. I couldn't help but smile as we all got on together and chose to make this a beautiful place to share with our distant fam across the state and the world through Facebook Live. So I'm the Indigenous Innovations Manager or braided sinew person. Kida Kos Woot.
Cherish Chutman and everyone else for including me in the space. Kos Woot Yuchatu Sak, Yaftad Yechatiti, Bushki Tana Chatsati. My Tlingit name is Kos Woot, and I'm also known as Gloria Wolf. I am Wushki Tan, that is my clan, Eagle Shark, and I'm living here in Yakdat with my family. My grandfather was Kwashkekwan from this area. Charles Shada married my grandmother, Marie, who is Wushki Tan. I have my husband, Ralph Wolf. He's from Prince of Wales. He's Haida, and we have two sons, Dowdunak and Uwak, who are 8 and almost 11. Uwak has a birthday here pretty soon, and I'm really excited to celebrate the young man he's turning into. My little deep thinker, questions everything, and he's very interested in the work that his parents do. Both Ralph and I enjoy advocating for our Indigenous people and the work that we do, and we dance Not Civilized Dancers. That was just applying for us to go to celebration, so that's really exciting. I'm not sure if it's going to happen. It's like they're planning on it full speed, and so we're just going to apply as well, trying to raise our boys in the ways that our grandparents would be proud of, into young Indigenous people who bring their identity into every space. They don't need to leave any of their Indigenous identity behind. And so we're trying to continue to strengthen them in the ways that they need to be strong in who they are, so that when they go out into the world, they can continue to have that power of their ancestors with them and all the decisions they have to make. So I'm honored to be loved and trained and encouraged by this team at First Alaskans Institute. It's been a heartwarming experience getting to know everybody and the work that First Alaskans does to help everybody to bring their Indigenous identity forward with them and to see the power and the strength and the beauty of our Indigenous ways. I have been helping as a Indigenous Innovations Manager, and encouraging the initiatives that happen at First Alaskans Institute and seeing how we can strengthen what currently exists. So I'm happy to have this conversation about what it means to heal. Our healing ways are so powerful. There's so much to learn from our ancestors, and to continue to bring their power and energy and healing ways into our space will only lift and encourage everybody. So, Ganesh Chish, and I'll turn it over to Saradash now.
Zanazoon, it's a good day. I'm Angela Gonzales. Danaka Heste Shlada Dathna Seasni. My Danaka name is Shlada Dathna. I'm from Huslia. Sate Danat Dekanten is the traditional name. It's along the Kaikuk River in interior Alaska. And I live and work in Anchorage. Heyo Togi O Den. That's the Danaka name for Anchorage. I need to practice that. Ita Al Yatlin Senior Bauza. That's my dad. Ina Eleanor Yatlin Bauza. That's my mom. And Ita Bedethnica, my paternal grandparents are George Frank, Minnie Yatlin, and Alda Frank, and they've passed on. And on my maternal grandparents are Edwin and Lydia Simon. My late grandmother's Danaka name was Danaga Uza, and they both also passed on. My brothers, Saketlaka, they're all younger. Al Yatlin Jr., Seyuga Satza, yes, Solomon Yatlin, Kleekin, yes, Johnny Yatlin, Yatlin Ilyo, Havuza. And my older sister, Sade, Sharon Bauza, her Danaka name is Gidzadithna. And my younger sister, Sadadzat, is Tanya. And then Sakun Sarbelio Bauza, that's my husband. And my daughters, Sidnaka Janessa, Dlinana, Yeth Ermelina, Ketset Saidalno Havuza. Those are my daughters, Janessa and Ermelina. And I'm so glad to be here and have this space where I can practice my Danaka language. I'm not checking that at the door. It's actually welcomed at First Alaskan, so I appreciate that. And I serve as the Indigenous Communications Manager. Uyugukchak?
Brianna, it's so beautiful to hear a language. Chamai winga uyuk jack miwa yupirok, mamtegitlok mu, Annika rayak yupirok, igak miwok, Attika kasaurok, Spokane, Washington, Malhoka, Dalhok, Jinak miwok, Attika itchuk jalit miwok. I'm Elizabeth David. My Yupik name is Uyuk Jack. I come from Bethel, right on the Kuskokwim River. And that was the first time I've attempted doing my introduction in Yupik, so please, I know that you're going to extend grace. It's not easy, but it's why we're here. It's part of the healing process. And I'm an aunt to many. I'm a sister to many. I'm a nanny to many. I have Jacob, Misty, Jimmy, Alana, Kylie, and Luke, I know is watching. And I'm just glad to be in this space with all of you guys today. It's such a beautiful day. It's such a beautiful space for us to be here. And I know that we're going to kick the new year off in such a good, strong way with each other. And it's going to be amazing. I serve as the finance director, and I've been with First Alaskans now for 3 years. So, Guyana and Doi, I think, you got with me?
Hello. Huanga Yupigistan Atka Ugugagami. My Yupik name is Ugugagami. Lalaramkastun Hannah Hamilton. My English name is Hannah Hamilton. And I live and work and raise my children with my husband here in Anchorage, Degayakuk. And so I have a 3-year-old daughter, Eslatukok, her English name is May, and a 1-year-old son, Kapilgu, his name is August. And I serve First Alaskans Institute as the Ikayok, or Assistant for Indigenous Operations and all around First Alaskans. And I'm so excited to share this space with everyone and talk about racial healing. I'll pass it to Chakti.
Sheesh, and good afternoon to everyone. Chakti Khatiosak, Tagwedina Khatsati, Kiksadi Yadi Ayakhat, Kagwantan, Kachari Dachkan Ayakhat, Khayit Dak Ayakhat. My Tlingit name is Chakti, which translates to Watchman of Hamilton Bay. My clan is the Tagwedi people, and I'm the child of the Kiksadi. My grandparents are the Kagwantan and the Kachari. And I come from the Yellow Cedar House and also from the communities of Shitka and Kikwan. Right now, I'm currently zooming in from my homelands of Shitka. And right now, I serve as an Indigenous Stewardship Fellow, working alongside the Protecting Our Ways of Life working group, which advocates for our traditional foods and ways of life. And I'm glad to be here today with you all. Ganeshtish.
Nishish, Kakuri, Yuchat Duasak, Chok Ayachat Kagwantan Nakatsiti, Achna Dakhahidi Guchhit, Hunak Kawu, Dak Ayachat. My Tlingit name is Kakuri. My English name is Anthony Lindoff. I am the son of Josephine Lindoff and Robert Boots Carl. I have, so on my father's side, he's from Heidelberg, from the Raven Brown Bear house. My grandparents on my father's side are the late Amps and Martha Carl. On my mom's side, my grandparents are James and Elizabeth Lindoff. And I have blessed to have 3 young children of my own, my youngest being Kaltu, who is 3, my son Shkanan, who is 9, and my oldest girl is Shagi Pla, who is 11. And I am honored to be able to serve as the Indigenous Stewardship Fellow alongside Chakti for First Alaskans Institute. And it is a pleasure to be here with you all. And I'm going to pass this on to Hanahi.
Base Kakuri. Zanazun Hanahi Sauza. Setsi Ka Helen Phoenix Heel. Bill Phoenix Heel. Hegilila. Setsi Ka Irene Sumpter and Daniel Sumpter. Yil Hegila. Setsi Danny Sumpter, Hegila e Rebecca Hoover Bauza. My maternal ancestors were Helen Phoenix, Bill Phoenix, Daniel Sumpter, and Irene Sumpter from Missouri. Setsia Danny Sumpter, Hegila e Rebecca Hoover Bauza. My grandfather was Danny Sumpter, and my grandmother is Rebecca Hoover. Setsia Ka Big Charlie Suckik, Eel, Bessie Williams Eel, Hegila. Setsia Ka May Irwin Yeel, John David Irwin Yeel, Hegi Allah. Setsia Ka Jenny Yell, Jack Irwin Yell, Hegi La'a. My paternal grandparents were Big Charlie Suckik from the Kobuk River Valley and Bessie Williams from the Koyukuk River. Bettles is the birthplace of my family, where my grandmother Jenny was born on Tramway Bar on the Koyukuk River. May Irwin and John David were second-generation immigrants from Ireland and were the parents of my grandfather, Jack, who migrated from Pacific Grove, California. And while exploring the Yukon River, met my grandmother, Jenny, and together they made their home in Nenana. When they moved to Nenana, they built our Irwin homestead behind me on mile 288 on the Parks Highway, and we've been there for 3 generations now. In a Gretchen Sumpter Irwin Bauza, Heel Eat a James Timothy Irwin. My mother is Gretchen Sumpter Irwin from Missouri, who I'd like to acknowledge I believe is listening in right now. I love you, Mom. My father was Jamie T. Irwin from Nenana, Alaska. This is also my first time introducing my father in the past tense. Thank you for being patient with me. My father died on April 27th of 2020. And that was the day that the ice broke, that the tripod in the Nenana Ice Classic went down and spring begun. My father is the one who brings spring. Saudi Ka, Stephanie M. Freeney Bauza, Sooth Ka, Jesse James Irwin, Yil Taylor James Irwin, Habauza, Sakitli Charlie Seamus Irwin Bauza. My older siblings are Stephanie Marie Irwin, Jesse James Irwin, and Taylor James Irwin, who have blessed me with 4 nieces and 2 nephews. My younger brother is Charlie Seamus Irwin. Olivia Sauza, Dehun Danaka Dehile Henahi Sazini. My name is Olivia Irwin, but in Danaka they call me Henahi. My grandmother Jenny gave me the name Henahi, which means the storyteller. But similar to Lagunai's story, my grandmother sort of romanticized my name. And when speaking with a brother, George Hawley, he is Degitan, a little bit different from Dinakanaga, but still Athabascan. He says to me one day, "Do you know what your name means?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm the storyteller. My grandmother named me the storyteller." And he kind of sat there and paused for a minute. And I said, "But I know that the literal translation is the one who talks a lot, or the one who likes to talk." And he started laughing and he said, "I didn't want to be the first one to have to tell you that that's a translation of your name." So I'm the one who carries on the stories for our family. Tagatili Hutsan et Clan. I am Caribou Clan from Tagatili or Nenana, the place where 2 rivers meet. Fairbank Fledo, Si Lathi, Bauza, Robert Pierce, Sadinkana, Kehit Lahi, Hunla, Riley Pierce, Bauza. I live, work, and play and make my homes on the lands of the Lower Tanana Dene people in Fairbanks, Alaska, with my partner, Robert Pierce, and we raise his daughter, Riley Pierce, together. I am the Indigenous Knowledge Advocate at First Alaskans Institute. And I am unbelievably excited for our conversation today, because as an advocate for our people, all I want is to figure out ways for us to heal. And so I'm so grateful that we're engaging in this conversation today. Anabase for the time. Shilkanai Tanichkak.
Yeah, Kuyana, everybody. I'm kind of excited to go last in this group of beautiful people. Chamai Wishilukanatanichkak up to Hutna Melissa Martin. I get the pleasure of living and working in my home community of Kodiak. My mother, Bertha Nielsen, was from Chignik Lagoon, as was her sisters, brother, her mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, many generations. My father was the late Laszlo Martin. He immigrated to the country when he was 19 years old from Hungary and somehow found his way on a commercial fishing boat in Chignik, Alaska, and met my beautiful mother and resulted in 3 amazing children. We moved to Kodiak before any of us were born. So I got to be born and raised here in Kodiak, and I love it. And much of my family is still here. I am honored to be the mother of 2 beautiful young women. Elizabeth, and her traditional name is Kalakoingjik. She is 24 years old and lives in Battleground, Washington with her boyfriend, and she has dedicated her life to health management and dental administrative dental work right now, but she is pursuing her education and looking at tribal governance, which that just makes me super excited. My youngest, who isn't so little anymore, Amber, her traditional name is Egayungjuk, which means little helper. She's not so little, but she very much is a helper, and she makes me proud, super proud. Every day she is the gallery coordinator for the Alutiiq Museum here in Kodiak and loves her job. I'm FAI's Indigenous Operations and Innovations Director, which is a new role for me, not the one they hired me for. I've been with FAI for just a touch over 2 years, and I am so happy to be a part of this family. It also has been a part of my healing journey. So didn't know I needed all of these people until I found them, and they have helped me grow into who I am at the moment. I still have a lot more healing to do, but we're on this journey together. Laganai, can I turn it back over to you?
Yeah, Koyana. Gosh, I love listening to our languages. How awesome was that? So we had 8 of our 20 Alaska Native languages. So we had Haida, Tlingit, Alutiiq. We had, or you could say, how do you say your language is Sugpiaq? Sukhstun. Inupiatun. Did I do that one right? And we had both the Northwest dialect and the North Slope dialect. Yeah. And the Bering Straits dialect. So let me take that back then. My number is wrong. I got to fix my number. We had Chimshan, Smalyak. Oh. I've learned that means yes in Smalyak. Yupik, Central Yupik, and then we also had Danaka, right? Koyuka and Athabaskan, and we had St. Lawrence Island Yupik. You call yours Yuktun, or how do you guys call your language, Akagagami?
Akuzabik.
Say that again.
Akuzabik.
Akuzabik. Ooh, beautiful. I love that Z sound. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. And, there's a couple things that I think are just norms for us that I want to make sure that we let everyone who's joined us on the live stream know. At First Alaskans Institute, wherever we are, our children are. So when you see our team, their children are with them. You'll see them come on screen. You'll see the staff making faces at them and waving at them and saying hi to them. And that's normal for us. Our children, our partners, our family, they're part of who we are, and they're the reason we do the work we do. And because COVID has slammed us into this really bizarre virtual context for our work, we're intimately in people's homes. And, their children are at home with them while they're, for school, and partners working from home too. So everyone's got to share the bandwidth. We all know what that's about. And that's absolutely wonderful for us. So as you're watching this live stream, you might see people pop in and out, and their children and families, and we love it. And they're the reason we do this work. Our people, our children. Another thing that's normal for us, which is really, we host a lot of convenings prior to the pandemic and even during the pandemic virtually. And one of the things that we've noticed in other gathering spaces online is that people don't eat or drink really on camera. And it's kind of like this kind of, I guess, Western business protocol, which we don't emulate at all. Because where we're concerned, when Native people gather, we are eating together. And even though I can't eat my Uncle Mike's halibut dry fish with my team in person, I will eat it on camera and virtually share it with them. Because I'm that nice. Make everyone's mouth water. But we eat together. Our food, our ways of life is central to who we are. And so whenever we gather, we let our people know it is absolutely normal for us and absolutely wonderful if you share your food with us. So eat on camera, drink on camera. And want to kind of let you folks know that, because I'm sure there's other places that that's probably not a standard for, but for us it is. There was one other one that I wanted to make sure people knew who were watching this. We're all on a language journey, and all of us as Native people, you know, who we are is a continuing growth. It's a continuing, evolving practice of being who we are out loud, of living and loving who we are as Native people boldly. And it requires hard work though. And sometimes that hard work isn't just breaking a sweat. It's not just the kind of sweat equity of actually having to learn the language and how hard it is to learn the language as adults. It's just not that surface. It's so much deeper. And something that we've tried to normalize is, one, learning our own languages, two, trying to pick up what we can of our other native languages. And if we can, replace the English words for those things where and when we can. And we also incentivize our employees to learn their language so that they can, at their pace, in the way that they're comfortable, find a way to actively learn their language. Because it's central to who we are, it's incredibly important to our healing. And so that's something that is also a norm for us, which I love. And I so appreciate, because that deep work is intergenerational work. And that hard work, like I said, it's not just sweat equity, it's tears, it's emotional equity, it's fraught with all kinds of bumps as we learn our histories and the things that have happened to our peoples. And it can be intense, it can be heavy, but it's also absolutely necessary. You know, we heal from the inside out. And what we want to talk about today is just that. How are we healing from the inside out as Native people? Like, we can't speak for all Native people, but we can share our story, and we can share our ways that we have adopted or that we practice. And maybe that will inspire somebody else, who will inspire somebody else. It's the way that we give. It's the way that we share with one another in these stories. And so as our team is here and we're thinking about what we want to share about our healing practices, I just wanted everyone who was watching to know a little bit more about kind of the way that we operate and the way that we feel about this stuff, because it really matters. And there's not enough spaces in the world where you get to hear Native people talking about these truths, that the things that we and our families and our peoples have experienced have and continue to be really hard. But what's even harder is not doing it. And I think we all work for First Alaskans Institute, and I can't speak for everyone either, but I think we all work for this organization because we believe in that vision of progress for the next 10,000 years. And we love our people. And it is a whole other thing to be able to express and see it reflected back, the love that our people give to us and that we are putting to work. That's what we're trying to do. All of that good grooming and growing and educating and teaching us to be the kind of people who care for our peoples, who help their peoples, who serve their peoples. All of that good teaching and grooming and growing by our communities was an investment in each of us. And this is a pathway for us to return all of that. So not only am I honored to be able to do this work with this incredible group of people, but also to be able to be in service to our communities, especially around this area of healing. The National Day of Racial Healing celebrated the day after the observance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, which was on Saturday. Is really a time for us to center what racial healing means. We all know what the fight for racial justice means. And centering that work as a matter of pursuit of equity, of racial equity and transformation through our truth, racial healing and transformation work is really critically important. And it's the racial healing part that a lot of people don't often get to talk about. So what does that mean? What does racial healing mean? And that's what we want to share with you folks today, is the way that we heal as Indigenous people, the things that we do, that we practice, maybe even some of our aspirations of what's next in our journey of healing. So with all that, I want to ask if one of our team wants to start us off with sharing something. Anybody want to step forward and share first? Everyone got shy?
While our team is pondering, reflecting on what they want to share, something that was coming to the surface for me as I was listening to all of our beautiful languages and everyone describing your native name, who you're named for, and what our names mean, I was really reflecting on the healing nature of our knowledge, and in particular around our names. One of the things that we operationalize at FAI, along the lines of what Lagunai was sharing, is bringing our native names out front and center and acknowledging that they represent more of the fullness of who we are and where we come from. You know, there was a time when others who came to our communities tried to shut the door on our naming traditions by changing our names, by imposing Western names on us and delegitimizing our names. And part of our healing, I think, is in bringing our names forward, because we recognize that they tie us and they ground us to our lands. They tie us and ground us to our families. Our names connect us to all of our ancestors who've ever been and will be. And we recognize how critical and vital that is to invite into the work that we do, because we're doing it with and for our community. And so for me, part of, I think, my own journey that I think I will be on my entire life is around our names. You know, Ayu means the one who spiritually heals. And I really do believe that every one of us were born with gifts that are needed in this time. And our responsibility is to grow those gifts in service to our community. And so for me, I've been pondering on all of the Ayus who've gone on before me and the experiences that they carried that I have within me. And that in doing the work that we do around racial justice and healing, that when I take care of myself, I am putting love on my ancestral memories that are within me. I'm putting love on the hurts that our peoples have experienced. When I take care of myself, I'm modeling for my children how we take care of our people. And so for me, I think a lot about, you know, the knowledge that's within our names. Ayu, my namesake, was my grandmother's mother. And there have been so many really incredible pieces of knowledge that have been revealed to me in my relationship with my children because of our names. Ayu had very specific relationships with each of them. Dalaluk, Inuatluruk, Kaniluk, Gaduluk. And there's so much richness in thinking about the connections of the relationships that my family has experienced throughout time and how we bring that into this time. So I just wanted to bring that into our space, that we, we even use our real names as our emails. So, we bring it into our space and we normalize it. And for me, it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to speak to our team members by their real name, to bring that to the surface of who we really are. Anyone else want to jump in and share? Hey, honey.
Goodness, Ayu, for sharing that. I too was thinking a lot about our languages, just hearing all 10 of them. 10 of them here in the space. It's so powerful. And for a long time, I think a lot of us experienced this. Our English names, our standard names, and then our true names. When we're called by our true names, it's a different hat. Like we bring a different energy into how we show up when we're called by the names that our grandparents have given us. And I'm so thankful to be in a space that not only allows for that, but encourages it. It's like there's this balance finally occurring for me that I get to be Kasai Ka in these spaces where I can bring all of the best things of myself into one space. So, and since starting my journey with FAI, I've gotten a lot of really great tips from my family here about how to stay in the language or have those language triggers. So I think, Uyu, you shared that you've changed, maybe it was Uyu, maybe it's someone else. Someone, I'd love to give credit, shared that in your phone, you just have changed everybody's names to their traditional names so that when you get a text or a phone call, you're prompted to engage with that person with that energy and in the language. And I found that I did that with my parents, so that's how I address them when they call. And it even changes the way that I talk about people, being mindful of when I bring their energy in, being respectful in that way. So goodness, Chish, for sharing that, and I'm happy to share that too. I hope everybody's in your phones right now changing everybody's names. That's been really amazing for me.
Who wants to share next? Kos
I
Woot.
would.
Oh, Kos Woot and then Uyu.
Okay.
Sheesh, this conversation about names is having me reflect on so many different levels of our names. My son and I were just reading 50 Miles from Tomorrow. And in that, Willie Hensley is talking about how names were given to our people. Just, various presidential names being distributed, and other names just being distributed while we had our own names. And so imagine them, knowing and being a part of this transition back to our names. In the middle of that time, it makes me think of them sitting around with their family members talking about, you're going to be called George Washington now? Like, that process of like, you're going to be called Abraham Lincoln, like having all of this shift, this huge, we feel like, and the times that we're living in are very difficult. My son, Yuwak, was talking about how he's scared to grow into being a young man because he doesn't know what's going to happen. He said it's kind of scary to think what's going to happen with COVID and what I'm going to have to live through and what life's going to be like. The world is changing, global warming, what's going to happen with the animals, what's going to happen with our water. Our kids are thinking about these issues. And we were reflecting on the strength of our ancestors and how much they had to go through. Just the change of their names was so big. Not only their names, but their entire life and culture and what they ate and what they did with their everyday lives and where they lived. These are our relations, just a couple generations back, people we've talked to. It was just happened, which is amazing to think about. So in this conversation about names, I was thinking about where we've come. And also I wanted to add that in my son's phone, Walk just got a phone. It's not even like blow my mind. But when I was adding names in there for him, it's really a complex system how I can get people referred to each other. So you didn't like your aunts and uncles. It depends on if they're your paternal or maternal aunt, maternal or paternal uncle, and how you're related, because since we're a matrilineal society, we're the same clan as our mothers and all her relations, and our fathers and all their relations are the opposite clan. So to bring clarity, there's just different names, and in an effort to help him remember them, each of his relations has how he's related to them attached to it. So Achat, and then their name. So that's kind of a fun way, as you guys are adding names into your phone, maybe challenge is to add how you're related to them as a way to remember how to refer to that person in public and in person. It can be quite complex when you first learn it. And shifting to other ways of healing, there's so many ways that we would heal, and just things that we did every day that were healing for Indigenous people. Gathering. I remember gathering wild rice with my gram and berry picking, and she always looked like a bear rolling around you could tell where she would roll because she was older, and she would sit down and you could see where she would roll around and pick everywhere she went, careful not to squish a single berry. But just that time talking about what happened in this place on the land. Berry picking wasn't just berry picking. It was talking about the journey of our ancestors while we berry picked them. Laughter, the fresh air, the laughter, and just being comfortable in our surroundings and knowing our surroundings so well, being so intimate with the earth, and those outings and those connections. And just that feeling when you burst into the house right after and you got all your berry buckets, just like that feeling of feeling so, the fresh air is still on you, and you have all of those berries and everybody's talking about the outing. It just feels so healthy. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. Thanks, Chief.
Brianna, not to continue the phone conversation for too long, but I have names, greetings, Goyanas, all of it is in my phone because I want to indigenize my auto text as much as I can. And it's amazing at how fast it picks up. But my phone can say Goyana in all of the language for all of my FAI fam. And I love that. And I know where the lands you guys are from. So it does change your energy. And it's something that really lifts me up throughout the day when I get a phone call from Lagunai or Ayu or Kasaitla. It makes a huge difference in the interactions. And another thing is, first starting at First Alaskans, I couldn't say my name. I didn't respond when people called me by Uyurukjak. And now it's different if you call me by my English name. It's like that connection really isn't there. And as hard as it was, I still said it. I said it every day I showed up, and it's just rolls off the tongue for me now, and it's different. And so I'm grateful for the encouragement. I'm grateful for the grace. I'm grateful for that anti-push, right? The nani push, the gentle push that said, hey, this is out there and it's beautiful. It's so incredibly beautiful. And I'm just learning. So I'm at the beginning of my learning journey, but it's encouraging and it's easier. The more we talk about it and the more we bring it in our space, the easier it is. And one thing I love that my sister Nuchi, my sister Val, she makes recordings for me. And so I listen to them in my car when I'm driving or in Yupik. So that's something that I get to hear when I'm driving down the road is my family talking to me in Yupik as I'm going down the road, and I'll just have it on repeat. And those things I'm really grateful for. Another thing is wearing gusbox. This one is my most favorite one I wear to only my special events that I love, because I want to save the thread. I want to save it till the end of time. And this is I just feel so loved in this gusbox, and it was made by my sister, Christy. And I love it. She used her indigenous knowledge, her indigenous hands made this gusbox for me. And so for me, lifting me up in a way that when I go out the door, I have her with me. I have the knowledge that she put into this with me. I carry my family with me when I wear a gusbox made by my family. And for me, there's nothing more empowering than a sister sharing their knowledge and passing it on and really lifting me up. And she doesn't even have to physically be with me, but I'm lifted up with her generosity. And that's just, I just have so much gratitude for that. Another thing is just self-care. Like, how are we taking care of ourselves to be there for our youth? All of our ancestors did self-care. They took care of each other. They took care of themselves by going on the land, doing the hard work. There's no exhaustion like leaving fish camp after a day or berry picking. It is the best form of exhaustion. It's knowing that you did a hard day's work and it's going to be fruitful for you and your community. And it's a gift. It's a real gift. And my final thought will be a kayak. I really want to upgrade my kayak from the Western style to one made with indigenous hands. So that's my what's next goal. So I'm hopeful that will happen, and I'm excited for that day to be on the water in my indigenous kayak. Brianna, for letting me share. Enjoy.
Brianna Chuknuk. Love it. Who wants to go next?
I would love to share. Well, following Uyu just makes me want to talk about our kids. because we're all aunties on here and we all talk about how much we love our kids. But I have to say, Uyu is just exudes auntie vibes. She is, and uncles, yes, thank you. And our uncles. But for me, racial healing really has to start with ourselves. And we've all just been talking right now about our individual journeys to coming into who we are within our given names. And for me, the way to secure racial healing for our future is to put that confidence within our kids. Uplifting our children, our beautiful brown children, our beautiful chunky children, our Yupik children, our Danaka children, all of our children around the state, just taking a lot of pride in who they are, being proud to be Native, being proud to be from fishermen, to come from the lands where their ancestors came from. For me, that looks like my nieces and nephews. None of them live in the village. And for me, that's a lot of just bringing up conversations around them, using Native words and teaching them what they mean, reminding them that we're Athabascan, reminding them what that means, who the Athabascan people are, getting them to continue to try fish and beaver meat. And every generation that grows is going to be very different in their healing journey. And they're going to be on a totally different pathway on their journey to healing their Native identities and coming into themselves. But I think that just loving them up so that they know who they are. And from our strategic plan, I guess I'll steal something of knowing, living, and loving who we are. And our children honoring that, honoring who they are and who their ancestors are. It just gives me so much hope and so much happiness to imagine racial healing within our kids, because it's just so possible with them. They have everything in the world. The doors are wide open for them. And I am really grateful for the individuals on this call that are listening in and our community members who are doing the work of supporting our children and uplifting their Native principles and their Native values within themselves. Doi.
I have to ditto you, Hanahi, because, it's funny to me because you're the same age as my daughter. So when you talk about kids, you're kind of a kid to me, and a young woman that I work with. It thrills me to see your generation and younger embracing that pride in your identity, because I feel like it took me forever and I don't actually even feel like I'm there yet. I still struggle with my indigeneity and being proud of it. But my oldest daughter, a couple of days ago got a tattoo, and she's well tattooed. But her newest tattoo is her Native name, and it's right behind her ear, which is that's not a spot I normally would tattoo, but all the young kids are doing it these days. And she wears her hair up all the time. So she's going to have to explain to everybody what that tattoo means. And she's excited to do that. I love listening to both of my girls talk about their Alutiiq identity and you and Kunnagu and all of the younger people on our staff that just are well seated in who you are as Indigenous people. And that gives me hope. That helps me know, and that's my healing, to know that all of the work that we've done and all of the work that we're doing now is making a difference.
I could go really quick. I think my form of healing would be, being out on the land with my family. Whether it's fishing, it's a pretty beautiful thing to see my nieces and nephews step in there when we're fishing and pulling in the beach seine. I remember that was me when I was little. but I'm glad I'm getting a little older, so I'm not the one being yelled at. Seems like that's something that get that torch passed to you, and you're not the youngest and you don't get yelled at as much. But I think being out there, it's really refreshing for the mind. Listen how quiet it is and just absorbing it all. But I think going to the areas that our ancestors used to go to, harvested, whether it was hunting or fishing, it's really important to protect those things. That's why I wanted to go into this field of work of natural resources, and I feel it's pretty fitting working with this job, because it's I'm protecting the memories that they'll make with their kids. But I think being out there, it's getting firewood. I was back home in Cake, getting firewood for my mom and with my uncle, and just made me appreciate the times that we have with each other. And I think that it's something that's really I hold close to my heart when I'm out there. And I think the best stories too is when you're out there in those areas and my grandpa or my dad, and they'll be like, "Oh, I caught a fish here," or they'll tell those little stories about who they caught it with, and even how the day was then. But I think the best form of mental health is being out on our lands and hunting and fishing and getting medicines. But that's something that I do for healing, is being out there. Jeez.
Oh goodness, geez. Who's next?
I'll jump in. Since we're on this this theme of names, Wachal Girak in Hudkill is a roughly potlatch giver or party giver. I think it's fitting. I just really appreciate every opportunity to feed people. It's just something that I live for. And we have a giant snack cabinet that is at baby level. So when the nieces and nephews come over, they know where it's their snack cabinet. They know exactly where it's at, and they just go in there like they own the house and throw open the cabinet door and dig around till they find the chips or nooks or whatever snacks that they're hungry for. And so Auntie's house, Auntie Barb's house, is the place to go because that's where the good snacks are. But also appreciate what I was raised and witnessed as a kid, and even as an adult with my own children, is watching my aunties in Hiktahunglai or Heidelberg, and how they treat the nieces and nephews, and how when the rare occasion and this precious moments we get to spend with these babies coming into our houses, and it's a real privilege when these little precious elders, our ancestors and our babies, come over and decide that you're the one that they want to go see. It's a privilege and it's an honor. And always feel so privileged when these little babies want to come over to be fed by this auntie, because I'm always happy to do it. And when we were planning out purchases and when we're thinking about things we're going to buy, I always consider, is this going to make the babies happy? My little ancestors, is this going to make them happy and want to come over? And most importantly, am I going to get to see their smiling faces and the looks of judgment from their moms about feeding their children junk and letting them get away with whatever they want? But it's a love that I think aunties share with their nieces and nephews that I witnessed for my son. Yafkiti is his pet name. He still hasn't received an adult name yet, but he was given Yafkiti, and on his Inupiaq side, he was given Tulorok. And I think it's pretty fitting in that I watch him grow, and I watched him from the time he was really little just be a goofy kid and just want to make everybody around him smile and trick them and play jokes and make them laugh. And so I think his names are pretty fitting. But I watched how his aunties treat him, and just love them up and laugh at every single joke, even when they're not funny. And I think there's a responsibility there that we have to laugh and to witness. And I remember, especially when I was younger and watching my mom and asking her like, mom, watch me do this same thing, like after 50 times of watching me do the thing. And she's like, I don't want to watch you anymore. But then having grandparents or aunties, I'll watch you. Show me, I'll watch. And just remember that, like, okay, watch this cool trick I can do, and thinking how cool I was when aunties or grandmas would sit there and just be so patient. Because we know as parents that it kind of eats away at us for being with them 24/7 and then seeing the same thing after a billion times of seeing the thing. But I just think it's so precious that these responsibilities we get to hold, and it really helps to, I don't know, alleviate some of my stressors. Who was it who gave it the term, what is it? They're therapy babies. One of the FAI staff called them therapy babies when we see our babies in the Zoom and we get to hold babies when we're in tough moments or really, really heavy moments in our lives. And then all of a sudden a baby will show up right on time, right on cue. There's that baby, right when we need that baby to kind of alleviate and lift up some of the stressors. And it's a privilege because of everything our grandparents got witnessed and everything our great grandparents witnessed, with some communities that just all of a sudden overnight had no children. And so I know that there's a realization there from aunties and grandparents now that we treat these children and the moments that they're willing to share with us with just the most precious, tender gloves we can, and just let them be kids as long as they're willing to be kids. So I think those are definite light moments in my life and major healing moments. In the future, moving forward, we keep talking about how we going to come back together again. Everything will be as a new normal, but coming back together again. And we were really doing a lot of practice in our language and in our song and dance for Haida, for Hadas. And it was pretty tricky here in Santa Kahini because there's not a whole lot of Haidas rolling around in this community because the Tlingit territory doesn't belong to us. But we were practicing weekly in our Haida dance group, and I was pretty excited about Hadas Tabui, which we threw out there as kind of a teaser name just to be funny because it means Haida power, and it stuck. But I'm looking forward to starting Hadas Tabui and more practice in song and dance again, because the babies just really loved it and they ate up every precious moment that they had in those spaces, and they sure loved dancing and singing. And sure like that the older kids, my son being one of the older kids now, all the young boys just look at him and watch his every move. And one more story. When we went to Hikta when Nate was, I think he was about 18 months old. And it was, our annual visit home because I was away at college. And the progression of grandchildren and his little cousins was like, they decided, we were at the beach and they decided at low tide they were going to walk to this little island because the tide would go down and there'd be a rock walkway to this little island right outside where we like to swim. And the oldest cousin was leading the charge. William was leading the charge, and they the lineup got smaller and smaller and younger as they went down the progression. There must have been about 10 of these cousins walking to this little island. And Nate was really struggling. He was 18 months old and he was really struggling in the back, really trying to make his way through and really struggling. And his other cousin, Taryn Bell, was ahead of him. And the oldest cousin leaned over, looked back, saw Nate, that Nate was struggling. And he said, "Hey, Taryn, you have to take care of Nate now. You're not the baby anymore. Make sure he's making it. You can't leave him behind like that." So she looked all mad because she wasn't the baby anymore. But sure enough, she turned around and she started helping Nate so that he wouldn't get left behind. And I think about that as I watch these older kids turn into the leaders and making sure every single one of their younger cousins and younger people are being lifted up in our spaces.
Jahawa. Love that. Who's next?
Wait. Oh, that was a beautiful story. Thank you. So one of the things that fills my cup is getting to teach anyone about the beauty of the Sukhbak culture, whether it's language or dance or sewing. I just got to teach a lamp carving class last month, and I love it because I needed that kind of opportunity. I didn't grow up learning about our art and our beauty. There wasn't language in our home. That was removed from our home and from our family generations before I was born, long before my mom was born. And so we didn't grow up with that part of our identity ingrained in us. And when I was exposed to Alutiiq dancing when I was 13, my best friend Mary Marsh brought me to Alutiiq dance practice. I didn't know what we were doing or where we were going. I just followed my friend, and that was a turning point for me. I got to experience what it was to be Sukhbak, and I needed that. There's a hunger for it in my spirit, and so when I get to grow that hunger or satiate that hunger, or help someone else find that, it's so rewarding and healing for me.
I'll share. I just love all the things that you're sharing, and it's just like thought-provoking. So anubasa, everyone. One of the ways that I've learned, I guess, to begin that journey of healing is through prayer and talking to ancestors. And I think it's just like we gain so much when we let our ancestors into the room, just like we did with our introductions, but also talking to them. I feel like, some days I might like wake up grumpy or something, but I just try to examine, why I'm feeling a certain way. Sometimes it's easy to see, sometimes it's not so easy. But I think growing that awareness of where you need to heal is important, because healing doesn't happen when you have your blinders on. You have to do the work, of looking at it, looking at, why you acted a certain way, or why you reacted a certain way, or how you responded to someone. I think that it's just really, you learn as you go. And at the same time, what I've learned from you all is giving yourself grace. So as you're learning and like maybe fumbling with my Danaka introduction, you're still giving me space to do that. And I'm giving myself grace by saying, it's okay, I'm just gonna try and, practice and practice and practice. But you're reclaiming who you are. And that's a really strong step toward healing, because for so long we weren't welcome to be who we are. Our ways of life were frowned upon, and that hurts. I feel that hurt with my grandparents and my parents being separated. My parents went to boarding school. And I think about, how did that show up when they raised me? And then you look at like, how is it showing up as I'm raising my daughters? You really take a hard look, maybe not so hard, but you just take a look, and then You might have realizations as you're examining yourself. And then with that awareness, one of the ways is talking about it, just like we're talking about it, having a conversation today, putting things out into the open. You just never know, like when you hear someone saying that they have, they're going through something and they share, you might have a similar story or something that they shared might make sense to you and help you understand yourself, so I encourage sharing your story, even though it might be kind of hard. And another thing that I pray about is, I guess, being a blessing to people. How can I be a blessing today? How can I ask my ancestors to work through me to bring healing to people. And I just stay in that space and just try to live that, even though it's not, this is not like something you do like once, you just keep on doing it and you keep on trying. And my late grandmother used to say, like when a aunt or a mom was, scolding kids or something like that, she, just like what Langkidak was sharing, my late grandma would say, like, be easy, really gently, be easy with them. And that's what we have to do for ourselves as we are reclaiming who we are and healing from our traumas, is to be easy with ourselves and be easy with each other. Like sometimes I might get frustrated, like if someone, if I shared some information and then they didn't get it, I'm like, why? Instead of like being frustrated, I look at myself and say, why am I reacting in this way? This is not, and then I realize that's not the way to act. So yeah, be easy with yourself. And if you make mistakes, you can always apologize. And once you realize you were a certain way with someone, then you kind of own up to your mistakes and have a conversation. And then I guess one of the other ways of healing is finding your passion, finding the things you love to do. It just seems like, oh, that's selfish, However, like one of my passions is beading, and it just brings me such joy, brings me to a zen, creating things that people will wear, is just something that you don't even have to pay me, to do. People buy the slippers or whatever jewelry, but it's just something that I really love to do. And I also teach people where I can, like how to do certain steps, because people who are interested ask me questions on how to do beading with 2 needles, or just specific questions that I'm sharing, and then I just do my best to share, and then they gain something from that. So it's something that I learned from my grandma and aunties and mom and other family, that I can share that gift with others, and that can be very healing to people. So just a few things on Baset.
On Baset. Love it. Who's next?
I can jump in. Oh, when I think about racial healing, I think about the importance of storytelling, of connecting, taking time to stop and connect with each other, and to just to share and to really listen. I think when you are given the privilege of hearing somebody share their story, whether it's a story about triumph or a story about struggle, you have to take that responsibility to hear them seriously and really listen with your heart. And you need to believe the story that they're sharing with you. You know, people are experts in their own experience and in their feelings. And the more that we share about what we've experienced, not only does it help us heal, but yeah, it helps others, right? Just like we said earlier, that there's not enough spaces where we can really share our stories so that we can inspire each other. I think a lot of people don't really fully understand the power that they have. They don't understand that they do have knowledge to share. And that's, you know, young and old probably aren't fully aware of the lessons that they have to share in their stories. This idea of storytelling, you know, I'm thinking that my partner, he loves to connect and talk about how our days were, and you know, the highs and the lows. And sometimes I don't want to talk about it because it's paperwork, it's in front of a screen, whatever, but there's more to the day. You know, I need to remind myself, no, I need to make time to stop and engage and reflect on the day. Doing this task, what did that make me feel? How did I do it? That's a good way to spend time with each other, right? And then I'm also thinking of my mother. You know, during the pandemic, been trying to stay in touch with my mom more, and she lives in Seattle, and I need to understand that when I do connect with her, that I have to, she's going to worry about me. I'm the baby. And it's okay to give her space to listen, for her to share her worries about me and the family, right? And I need to understand too that she's got memories that are going to come up and she's going to share with me, and I have to be grateful for that. That's more of that storytelling. And some of those stories are going to be so relevant to what's going on, and some of them aren't going to be relevant right now, but they're still worthy of being listened to. And even though I'm an adult, she still has lots of advice for me, and I need to be grateful for it because she loves me and she's sharing it because she does. And, you know, my mom has experienced hurt in the past, and unfortunately, she still feels that hurt today. And so when we talk about racial healing, we have to understand that it is a long process. It is so long. And if the person that you're speaking with feels trust and they're willing to share their story of that pain and that hurt, oh, make sure you're listening with that heart. Give them the time, give them the respect to listen, because hopefully that sharing is going to chip away at their hurt just a little bit more. And I know that I want to make sure that I'm raising my kids in a way that's not going to cause more harm to others in the future, right? And in my circle of influence, I want to make sure that I continue to prevent that harmful behavior from happening. So just, we can't underestimate that story, underestimate the tradition of storytelling that our ancestors were extremely proficient in. And we are lucky to have that mechanism that really brings so much to our lives, that long-standing tradition that all of us have the ability to do. And the wonderful thing about it is that there's a diverse way of how we share that type of storytelling, right? We all speak in different ways. We all speak in different tongues. Some of us might be great with verbal, but others might be strong in the art they create, or the writing that they do, or the social media posting, or the memes that they make. So yeah, that wonderful gift of storytelling. Waiwa.
Sheesh. Doiksen. Kateram hana. Mishak.
Something that Flada said sparked this thought process for me about just being aware of where you need healing. The word that came to mind is proximity, and just the importance of who you're in proximity to and with, and brought me back to my childhood. A lot of my childhood, I lived with my grandparents on my mother's side in Guyana, and I would go back and forth between Fairbanks as well. But growing up, my grandmother, she sewed for all of her many children, and sewed traditional regalia, and she sewed for her grandchildren as well. And so growing up, I had parkies and muklaks and mittens and whatnot, sewn by different family members too, and gifted to me. And I remember just having such a pride instilled within me of who I am, being an Inupiaq person, and then also from my dad's side, being Marshallese, being Pacific Islander, and loving all things Islander, the food and culture and whatnot. Then I, fast forward from like being a little kid to being in high school. I remember going on trips with snow machines. So Norvik is in the Norvik-Guyana triangle. It's very close by. And so out of my grandmother's love, she would dress me up in one of her parkies because she had many. And so they were warm enough for travel by snow machine. And I remember one year when I was in high school, going to Norvik, making it to the beach, and parking there. When we parked there, before we went up into the village, I remember switching from my grandmother's parkie into my North Face jacket really quickly, and that North Face jacket was not nearly as warm as my grandmother's parkie. And so it just brings to mind like the shift, like when did that happen, in my mind, when it was not cool to wear your regalia. And I know that was the same with a lot of my peers. And a couple years later in 11th grade, I was gifted another parkie, and then I started to wear that with pride and whatnot. But it was, I think the same sentiment was, that it's better to wear westernized ways are just better, and it's like the little ways that those messages show up, and so I'm gonna fast forward again. A few years ago, before I moved back to Alaska, I had the opportunity to live in Kona, Hawaii, and it was wonderful, of course it's paradise. But one thing that I noticed while in proximity to the local Hawaiians, Native Hawaiians there, is
just how proud they are of their ancestry, of their heritage, of their land, and how much they exude that strength and protect their land when they protect their local beaches. And that's for a reason, you know. And so I saw like something in me shifted then living in Hawaii and just seeing how proud they are of their identity. And then coming back to Alaska and in the village, I still, you know, I would say most everyone is pretty proud of being who they are, at least in Kayana, where I'm from. That's part of my experience. So like, you know, we would say things like, I'm a strong Inupiaq, or we'd use the E word back then. I'm a strong Eskimo, dare I say. But, you know, so like living in the village, like, yeah, maybe I would prefer to wear North Face at some point, but I knew who I was, and I was very proud of who I was. Going into different communities in Alaska, in the city, you know, Fairbanks, Anchorage, there was a shift in the land where it felt not as accepting, and where I can see how someone would not want to share their Native identity because there was oppression often attached to that, right? And then to think of the powers and principalities that were at work from far away that affected our people and our identity, that tried to control the narrative of Alaska Natives being less than. And so bringing it back to, you know, like after going to Hawaii, coming back to Alaska, and I think realizing in myself, like, why I just spent an amazing 3 years around people that just showed me how to, in different ways, be proud of who I am or who they are, you know, and protect the land, and to do it with no regard for the oppressors, you know, or more oppressive culture. And so I think it just brings to mind, like, where did that shift happen in me, and having to become aware of that, like Claudia brought up earlier, and being in proximity to people that being in proximity to people that will help to help me in that healing journey, that have helped me in that healing journey, and then also knowing when to take myself out of proximity to people that might slow that down, or you know, just not even help in that area. And so I would say proximity has been really important for me, who I surround myself with, and I've found that that's been family as of lately. Like I've had to call my uncle, he's a culture bearer, and to hear him share even the same stories, you know, and he'll be like, did I tell you this? I'm like, yes, heard that all my life. You know? But honoring him when he shares those stories, because knowing that when he goes, that we're going to be the ones that have to continue those stories and keep those stories alive. And so I would say being back in Alaska for the last 6.5 years, and being in proximity to more Alaska Natives has reawakened and strengthened this area of healing in my identity. And so, yeah, I would encourage you all to consider who you're in proximity to, you know, and thinking about other cultures too. You know, if you're not in proximity to people of color, to our Black and Brown, Indigenous people of color, the community, then how are you going to know areas where you might need healing, and also areas in which you can help them find their healing? So, you know.
Misha, I love that. And as you were sharing, I remembered too that yesterday was the observance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It was also the 129th anniversary of the illegal overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. So as you were sharing about that, I was remembering that. So I just wanted to send some love to our Hawaiian brothers and sisters as they continue their fight to assert and fight against that illegal overthrow. Kurimaku?
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Lagunai. I didn't know that actually, that yesterday was also that anniversary. So I'm thankful for you bringing that into the space. I think there's so many thoughts that have been shared. My mind is going in all these different directions. I just really appreciate everyone for sharing what healing looks like to them. I think that segue or that story about the overthrow of Hawaii is in some ways really connected to what I was thinking about sharing, in that I think for me, part of my healing journey began when I embarked on a journey that I'm still on, of understanding the history of our people and what has been done to us, and also what we endured, and of course what we survived, and what we're now working to kind of undo or create a new legacy from. But I think my healing journey started with realizing that I was seeing a lot of hurt in my community and my family. And I think a lot of us see hurt in our communities that shows up in different ways. And we see it all the time. And sometimes it's so normalized that you don't even realize that, sometimes you don't even notice it anymore, because it's just a part of your everyday life, what you see around our communities. Sometimes people being hurtful to each other, or just all kinds of things, all kinds of ways that it shows up, right? So I think it first started with me wondering, where did that come from? And why are things like that? Why is it like this? And slowly learning the history of what was done, and understanding how colonization happened, the process of missionaries coming and teaching us that to think that we were, that our ways were less than, all of those lies that were planted across our state. And realizing that that happened, right? And that sometimes people might talk about this as if it was history that happened a long time ago, but we know that we very much still feel the reverberations of that today. Just like when you drop a stone in water and the water ripples out. So that some of these things might have happened, not in my lifetime, but the ripple effects of that are still being felt today. And I think we see that when we really take a close look at the different ways that it shows up in our communities, we all see it. So that was where my healing journey began. And once I started to understand that, I think the next part for me was understanding that we are not what was done to us. We are not those hurts, and that what we endured is not the beginning of our story, nor the end of our story. That our story began thousands and thousands of years ago on these homelands, and they're going to keep going after this time. And so with that, remembering that, as I think it was Alexander Salmon who said this, our wonderful leader from Igiagig, that everything that we're striving for today, we already were, that we come from perfection. And remembering that message has really helped me in my healing journey, I think. And realizing that we come from beautiful people and we are beautiful people, because we don't hear that message enough anywhere. And I remember when I was in high school and the awkwardness I felt about being Native. And if we had a I went to high school in Anchorage, in Dirayak here, and so there were other Native kids, but I was kind of separated from them in my own other classrooms, so I didn't really know them very well. But there was a group of kids that were proud, and at least that's what it seemed from what I could glean. I didn't know them personally, but sometimes they did dance performances and things like that. And I remember the embarrassment that I felt at that time, because I didn't see, there wasn't a message of, hey, you come from beautiful people and you get to be proud of that every day. So I think that was part of my history, or my journey, I should say. And with that realization that we come from beautiful people comes that message that Farah Dathna was sharing, that your grandmother shared, to be easy with yourself. And I think I'm still learning how to do that. It's probably going to be an ongoing process for a long time, but learning how to be easy with myself, learning how not to beat myself up for not being XYZ, this or that, not knowing enough Inupiaq, or not knowing enough of how to sew our regalia, or whatever it is, learning to let that go. That's been a journey, but it feels really good to let that go, because when you do, you open up a space for yourself to just give yourself the space to be unapologetically Indigenous, unapologetically Inupiaq. And that's a really special and fun and exciting place to be in. And I think we're living in a really exciting time now, where so many people are also on this journey, and we are collectively like pulling the blanket off of a lot of our practices that were put to sleep, and waking up a lot of that knowledge. And I see it, especially in our young generations, as people were saying earlier, that our young generations are just super hungry for this, and they're so excited, and they're just on fire. They're leading us in a lot of ways. So I think that's also been really exciting to see. I didn't say this earlier in my introduction, but everybody here knows that I am a super proud auntie of two little ones. And actually, I was just joking that earlier, that they're not really little anymore. They're almost taller than me, and they have bigger feet than me. So they're like about to be taller than me. It's coming. The day is coming, and I'm not that short. I'm like almost 5'7". So they're gonna be taller than me at some point. But they give me so much motivation as well. And I want them to grow up with some of these messages and some of the knowledge of what happened to our people, so that they can also see the way that the healing is happening in real time. So I think that's a little bit about my journey. I think something else that is personally healing for me is just embracing every single opportunity to learn more about what it means to be an Inupiaq woman, and that is an ongoing learning process as well. And that's okay. It's okay to be still learning that. There's no timeline of what that's supposed to look like. So a couple years ago, I had the chance to take a workshop to learn how to sew kamik, our footwear, and I've learned now how to sew the top part. I'm still waiting for the opportunity to learn how to crimp the hard bottom soles, but I'm really excited about that, because our people were just really ingenious, especially in the way that we crafted regalia and just everyday clothing to keep ourselves warm and keep our loved ones warm. And I think that keeping that tradition of keeping loved ones warm is a really beautiful way that I can personally see myself continuing on that tradition of what it means to be an Inupiaq woman. So I think for me as a in my next steps, I would really love to learn how to do that, how to crimp hard bottom soles and then make little kamik for my not so little nieces anymore in my family, and just continue to make other things for them so that hopefully they'll have similar memories as to you, Misha, about just having Inupiaq regalia that they can be proud of. And something else I started doing a few years ago when I moved back to Alaska after graduating from college was I joined a dance group here in town. And that was amazing as well, because I feel like there I met a community of people who just accepted me for me, of course, outside of our First Alaskan space. And I met people that knew, you know, my family, you know, I met people that, there's an elder there who actually, Kunmiru was his auntie. So when I see him, sometimes he says, "Hi, auntie," jokingly to me, because that's the relationship he has to Kunmiru, to my namesake. And so it's really special being able to have those kinds of relationships, and then being able to teach my nieces about what that means. There was one time when my younger niece was maybe 6 or 7. She's named after my grandmother, and there were a couple people in my dance group who went up to her and asked if they could shake her hand because they were so excited to meet because was a really special person in their family as well. And I just think, you know, I hope that, I don't know, because she's still little, but I hope that those kinds of memories are something that shapes her down the road, and that she'll remember that and feel strong in who she is, and my other niece too. So that's a little bit about my healing journey, and I hope that whoever is listening maybe takes away a piece or two from that and you apply it to your life. Deborah.
Kakuri.
Sheesh, Hawa. That was beautiful. Kunmagu, per usual. Yeah. Healing. Well, that's pretty hard, scary stuff to confront. Our history and embark on our own healing journey. But what's harder for me anyway is carrying that trauma and anger. I know, my wife knows, my best friends know, because I've been carrying that burden for 40 years now. And for some reason, it's just really, it's not that easy to let that hurt and anger go for some reason. And I find that by remembering and acknowledging the love of my late mom and late father and my late grandparents, my ancestors, I'm inspired to heal the best that I can for them, for myself, but more importantly for my children, as they are the cycle breakers. And you know, sometimes it feels like I was born in a storm, but I know, being on this journey, that there's calmer seas and good fishing, good hunting, good parties ahead. And even though I'm still navigating, I know where I come from, and I know I'll get there. For me, most people know that hunting and fishing provides that connection to certainly the land and our way of life, but also my parents. My father, Boots, Carl, he was probably the best, most productive and generous hunter and fisherman in Heidelberg. And I used to love how proud my late Chana was that I reminded him of his son, Boots, or how proud my mom was when I brought home sockeye or seaweed back to the family and elders, shared like she would have done. And I think part of that is why I bring that intensity, if you will, whenever I hunt or fish, because I have high expectations and I'm unapologetic about it, as that's my story, that's my family history and identity that that I choose to uplift and honor. I choose to let the trauma and the anger go, and it's hard, but I know I'm not alone. And you know, the impacts of colonization nearly wiped out our way of life, and therefore what it means to be indigenous. And that's why I feel so indebted to the First Alaskans Institute family for bringing me in and just allowing us to reclaim our identity and flex our sovereignty by singing and dancing and hunting and fishing on our lands. And sometimes that's not always enough for me, like just hunting and fishing and whatnot. But I found that by normalizing our traditional names, that's certainly another way that deepens that connection to our ancestors and our way of life. My son, for instance, his English name is Otto, and I chose to give him the same name as my great grandfather Otto Lindoff, Kagwantan from Hunakawu. My littlest, Joe, named after my mom, and her Tlingit name is Kos Woot, which is she's named after my mom's auntie Esther Case. Otto's Tlingit name is Shkanan, and he's named after my great uncle, who taught most of my uncles how to hunt and fish. And so that's a strong connection. And I feel the further back I can go to connect, the better the calmer the journey is, I guess you could say. And so I just feel blessed and honored to be a part of this journey with you all. And I look forward to the next chapters here. But yeah, that's a little bit about how my healing practices. And also, for a lot of us Alaskan Natives, basketball might be a big part of our way of life. And so for my Haida side, to connect with my Haida brethren, and I get to play basketball with them, and it's much akin to, you know, you get into these battles and it's memorable, and you develop this kinship, much akin to like hunting and fishing, going on these epic hunts, and you share that with your friends. You build this camaraderie and respect for not just yourselves, but the land as well. And that's how basketball is for me as well. So I had to put the basketball plug in there as well. And because yeah, I dare say I wouldn't have the connection and relationship that I have with my Haida buddies if I didn't play basketball with them at All Native basketball tournament. So hopefully we'll see them soon with the pandemic. Hopefully it gets to the endemic phase, and we can get back to partying with each other and fishing with each other and playing basketball with each other, crocheting with each other. Yeah, that's a little bit about how I operate.
Atlinganis chish, Kakuri. The basketball had to be brought up. Had to be brought up. It's real. It's real. Awesome. Okay. Egagagami.
Thanks for sharing. One thing that's very healing for me as a mom and as a Yupik woman is dancing, traditional St. Lawrence Island Yupik dancing. And I was just thinking of when I was little and visiting St. Lawrence Island, Sibukak, and watching the dancing and wanting so bad to go down and dance, but just always something holding me back. And I think for me, it's not wanting to be on the spot and not being too shy to let my aunties or my mom really be proud and really just, how aunties are when you're all proud. Just being too shy. And when I got pregnant with my daughter, I realized I want her to be able to dance and not have something push her back. So I knew that I needed to get over it and dance so that she could be growing up with it and it just be normal in her life. And that's really healing for me. And my son, he's named after my Appa Kapilgu, and he's a drummer and singer. And you could really see that in him as a baby. He will put on atuk on the TV and he'll be in the room and he'll come out right away and start bouncing his feet and so cute, just really knows how. And yeah, that just makes me so proud, and I'm so proud to carry that. And I'm very lucky that my husband is a drummer too. He drums for our traditional dance group, and I'm just so lucky and honored that I carry that in my family.
Ekamsi. Egakagami. Oh man. Whew. I kind of don't want this to stop. So much good stuff, so many good ideas. I was thinking about my Nani Mona, and I know some of you have heard the story before, but when I was younger, I was, I would that negative self-talk that a couple people have brought up, like always the hardest on myself, always really super critical of myself. And so I had a lot of negative self-talk going on when I was younger, and I was washing dishes at my nanny's. And if you've ever had a chance to come to my nanny's house, you know that there is a full wall of coffee cups. And it was the special thing that everyone did when they traveled. They had to get a mug, a coffee mug from wherever they went to bring back to her. And it was that gift you give to your grandmother, and it just, delights her, that type of gift. And she has those accordion cup holder things, or maybe some people use them as coat racks or whatever, or towel racks. And she's got layers of them from, like almost near the, like maybe waist high all the way up to taller than me. And so her cups meant something to her. And I broke one of them when I was washing dishes. And I said out loud to myself something like, "Oh, you're so stupid," or "You big dummy," or something like that. And she was in the living room and she said, "You don't talk about my granddaughter like that." And it was at that moment, you know what our people talk about, like those moments of epiphany or becoming aware. And we have moments throughout our life where we become aware. And it's like a birth. It's like a rite of passage. There's different epiphanies in our lives, right? And it was one of those moments for me when I became aware that I didn't belong to myself, that I belonged to her. I belonged to my family. And just like you wouldn't let your niece or nephew talk bad about themselves, it's the same way of thinking of yourself in that relationship. And as a Native woman, that's a really hard journey. And I don't think I've ever met a Native woman who doesn't have that as a challenge to recognize and work through, and to not be so hard on yourself. And it's one thing to rise to a challenge, right? It's one thing to work hard for something and for it not to work out, and to feel that disappointment, but to not devastate yourself about it, you know? That was just a coffee cup. But I wasn't mad that I broke the coffee cup. I was mad at myself because it meant something to my Nani. But in that moment, she reminded me that I meant more to her than that coffee cup. And and it's been an ongoing part of my healing work. And I was thinking about that actually just really recently, because I was reading a study about the impact that negative thinking and negativity actually has on your physical body. And there's all kinds of research out there, right, that talks about the impact of negativity. So what does that mean? That means negativity towards yourself directed inwards. That means all of those things that you think but don't say. It means the things that you say out loud. It means the way that you think about people, the way that you think about your community. It means the way that you show up, you know. Lots of people kind of have this notion of, you know, the power of our words, right? We have this value as Native peoples. We have a shared Native value around being careful with what you say, right? Because it's going to have an impact. It will be like an impact on someone. And so you have to be really careful with your words. Well, it's also being really careful with your thinking. Like how you apply that negativity in your life ends up harming you in really physical ways as well, not just the emotional pain, right? But it has impacts on your cardiovascular health. It has impacts on your chronic stress and chronic pain. It has impacts on so many parts of our lives. And I think about how easy it is sometimes to forget that we talk about our foods as medicine, our plants as medicine, our cultural practices as medicine, and our thoughts are medicine too. Because it also has the opposite effect when you think positively in terms of those physical health benefits. Your cardiovascular health goes up. The level of stress goes down. Chronic pain eases. Like there's all these things, right? Well, those studies have been out for a few years now, but our people built an entire society around those principles. So why wouldn't we just adopt them? Why wouldn't we just practice them? And I asked myself that over various things that I learn in our culture, like, why aren't I doing that then? Okay, I'm gonna do that then. Like I'm just gonna do it. The knowledge, the wisdom, all the experience will hopefully find me at some point. Like I don't claim to be knowledgeable about all of the stuff, but if I start following their lead, then I become a conduit for their knowledge to come through me, And so I've been really trying to think about that as a practice that I do. When I went on my first canoe journey back in 2016, it was because I knew I needed to do something to really start working on my healing journey in a massive way. And man, I cannot wait for the next one. I went again in 2018, and one of the things that I was really, from the very moment that we were on the dock the morning that we were going to take off, our one of my Kachadi clan leaders, Kanak, Ruth Demert, and other community leaders came to see us off. Our dance group came to see us off and sing to us. And my Uncle Mike was one of the community leaders there. And both him and Ruth talked about the power of our ancestors that we were going to experience on this journey. And my Uncle Mike said something that I still think about and use as a reminder to myself every day, especially when I have to do something that takes a level of experience or strength that I may not quite have achieved yet. But one of the things he said is, when you go to sleep at night, your ancestors are going to come to you and they're going to come into your dreams. Let them in. And when he said, and then he said, and when you can't pull anymore, because that's what we call this. When you can't pull anymore, your ancestors are inside you. Let them do it for you. Let them pull for you. And on that first journey, there was a time when we left Sumpter Bay and we were heading towards the northern part of Admiralty Island. And I don't know what happened. I came to right before we had to start making the swing around the northern tip of the island, around the lighthouse. And when I came to, I was still in the yoke. I was still pulling, but I totally wasn't there. And I could feel my face was soaked with tears. And I was just there and I was just pulling. And no one on the yoke at least appeared to me to have even noticed that I was gone that entire time. That's a couple hour pull, you know? And that was some really deep, deep, deep healing that happened to me during that time, because there was a time in my life that was before that moment. And then there's after that. And that is something that I'm still learning from. And, you know, we're not going to get everything right. And it's going to be difficult. But our ancestors were epic. They were epic. They did everything epically. Like thousands of years later, we still know their stories. And inside of each of those stories is something that tells us how to be. And I'm so filled up with that. And on this healing path, there are definitely really hard moments. But I would not trade them, not for 1 second. Not for one iota of a second. And I feel that way about the work that we do. I feel that way about the work that our Native people do. As my sister Kate Charrington, who's Maori from New Zealand, would say, as we remember putting ourselves back together, who we are. And it's amazing. Our community, it just blows my mind how powerful and how epic our community is today. We have so much ancestral love. And we look to our ancestors for their guidance and their wisdom. But our people here today are so loved and cherished now and are doing epic things today. And I think that we forget that. And I want to thank the folks who were truth providers at our last Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation Lands and Laws Tribunal that we had last week for making me remember that. They gave me the gift of remembering that part, that our people today sharing our oral narratives is critical to our well-being and for telling the truth about what our peoples have gone through, what we're going through. And it was just a gift that they gave last week. It just really was a good reminder to me, and I needed to hear it. Our people's stories today are powerful and so needed and are healing. So, man. Well, we've shot past our 3 o'clock timeline. Because time's just a construct anyway, and we needed to hear these stories. So I want to make sure to thank the folks who joined us on the live stream. And I want to thank our team here for being willing to do this, to help us kick off our new year, 2022, by applying some medicine to it from the beginning. And I hope that everyone who had a chance to tune in or will tune in receives a gift from all of this amazing sharing that people put out there into the world, breathing life into all of these different facets of healing from your learning journeys that you're on and that we're on, that our people are on. I just want to say to all you folks for being willing to. And man, everything that you all shared really filled me up too. It's a new year for us to continue to just live vibrant Indigenous lives and live them out loud and celebrate them and have the highest expectations of ourselves for our community. And I just want to say to our team here and to all the folks who joined us or will watch this at some other point. And we love hearing the comments that you were dropping in the thread, and always want to connect with our community as well. So if you're interested in the work that these folks are doing and you heard a little snippet about what they do, please reach out and connect. We are so excited about the things that are happening and being worked on across our state. I think the other thing I want to do one of these sessions for is just like a Native community love fest of our Native organizations as well. You know what I mean? Like our organizations are doing amazing work. And I just want to shout them all out and just lift them all up and say, oh my gosh, look at this one. This one's doing this. How amazing is that? You know? Anyway, another one coming up. With that, I guess we'll sign off and we'll say, see you folks later, or love you, see you, bye. Or be well and take care of yourselves and your families and communities. We're doing a good job getting through this pandemic. Ayu, did you want to say something?
Daphna offered to close us out with a prayer.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Daphna. So good.
Yeah. Anabaset to our ancestors and Creator for bringing us together in this healing space today. It's so sacred when we gather. Thank you for bringing us together on screen here today, but all those who will tune in near and far. Creator, Baset, for being with us and helping us to feel safe and see healing in real time, and this aiding in this transfer of knowledge. And Baset, for allowing us to be in a space where we can bring light and love to our own healing journeys, because it extends so much further. Let the stories be ripples of healing that we all need. Help us to be strengthened as we all move forward together. Help us extend courtesy for messages that were shared today, and for those who receive the messages, be the messages that they need to hear and to be received as gifts and not meant to any harm. Anabaset Dinahato and our ancestors for the blessing of being together and surrounding us with your love. Amen.
Anabaset. Okay. Well, we'll see everybody again down the road. Take care. And we're going to sign off the live stream now.